Hello, good evening. Thanks for being with us tonight here on The Hill. I'm Blake Berman. This is The Hill on NewsNation. So, what does day one look like? Well, we know there's been finger pointing, furloughs, reported firings. The latest at this hour on the stalemate of the first day of the government shutdown. Up on the Hill, Schumer, Jeffries, Johnson, Thune, all before the cameras today. At the White House, we didn't actually hear from Trump. Rather, the vice president sent into the briefing room and not backing away from the idea of mass firings.
We haven't made any final decisions about what we're going to do with certain workers. What we're saying is that we might have to take extraordinary steps, especially the longer this goes on. We're going to have to take extraordinary measures to ensure the people's government operates.
But is this the right time to say you're fired? We'll show you why companies all across this country are actually doing just that. Plus, Brian Enton, how about this, takes us inside a secret underground bunker, one of the most secure military facilities in this country, what he saw, and how our troops are keeping us safe. But first tonight, here from the Hill, day one feels indeed like the starting point and nowhere close to the finish line. The government at this hour, 6 o'clock here on the East Coast, 3 o'clock out west, shut down. Democrats remain firm on their demands to extend health care subsidies, a proposal President Trump and Republicans reject outright, saying, keep the lights on and we'll negotiate later.
This could have been avoided. It's totally unavoidable. And everybody's now asking the question, how does this end? Well, it ends when the Senate Democrats pick this bill up, passed by the House of Representatives, and vote for it.
Democrats want to avert this crisis, but Republicans tried to bully us, and it's clear they can't. They don't have the votes.
And that's kind of been the back and forth here for several days now. Now, 3 senators, Democratic senators, did break ranks, siding with Republicans against the leader of their party, Chuck Schumer, or at least the leader there in the Senate, his demands. Catherine Cortez Masto, Nevada. John Fetterman, Pennsylvania. Independent Angus King of Michigan. Still, the GOP bill needs at least 5 more Democrats to change their vote to reopen the government. At least it's one way to look at it. The lone Republican no vote, Senator Rand Paul. Both sides right now dug in. And the president today at the White House leaving the sales pitch to the vice president. We begin tonight with our Kelly Meyer live over there at 1600. And Kelly, it was interesting because we didn't see Donald Trump today, but we saw a whole lot of J.D. Vance.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Blake, because I keep seeing a lot of him this week, talking with both leaders on both sides of the aisle and working through this or trying to work through this and find a solution. So he's really been front and center in all of this, but still a lot of finger pointing on this side of Pennsylvania Avenue, pointing back at the other side. We didn't hear from President Trump, but we did hear from Vice President J.D. Vance, the White House calling this the, quote, Democrat shutdown and putting pressure on Democrats to open up the government and threatening mass firings if not. Trump's budget chief walking House Republicans through what the White House called imminent layoffs. Democrats today say it's just the administration using the shutdown to carry off Doge 2.0. The White House also trolling Democratic leadership. You just saw there in the briefing room playing video of Trump's True Social post with Hakeem Jeffries in a sombrero and mustache. Here's Vance talking about that.
I'll tell Hakeem Jeffries right now, I make this solemn promise to you that if you help us reopen the government, the sombrero memes will stop. And I've talked to the President of the United States about that.
And Vance says he is continuing talks with colleagues on the Hill, as he says the president is as well. Blake.
Our Kelly Meyer live tonight over at the White House. Kelly, thank you. With us now here on the Hill, the Texas Democratic Congressman Henry Cuellar, senior member of the House Appropriations Committee. Congressman, nice to see you in person.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. We always do this remotely, so I appreciate you coming in. I always enjoy hearing your perspective because you're one of the moderate Democrats, right? You're one of the folks that actually will cross party lines, at least have the conversations with Republicans. With that as the backdrop, you also were one of the Democrats who voted against the House bill. How do you square sort of 3 Senate Democrats voting for it, but your entire party in the House voting against it?
Well, look, first of all, we don't want to have a government shutdown, but we certainly don't want to have millions of people that are going to lose their Obamacare subsidies itself. So we want to make sure that we can go ahead and work something out. I know we can. Look, I was part of the conference committee back in 2019 when the government shut down under Trump 1 for 35 days, and we were far away. But we were able to open up the government. Unfortunately, it took 35 days. There's always a way of working this out.
So what is the off-ramp here? As you see it, what's the off-ramp? Like, what gets you, a moderate who will work with the administration, to say, okay, let's do it, I'm in?
Okay. Well, this is what I would do if I was in charge. But I'm not in charge, but I would say this. Look, we can pass the CR, and then at the same time,
short-term spending bill.
Yeah, it's a short spending rule. Then we can pass a rule that says that it would deem it, in other words, it would deem the subsidies in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever we want to do it. So this way, for sure, it will get passed, but it would give us at least 2 weeks or a month to negotiate whether we lower some of the caps or whatever we need to do. So there are ways that we can do things at the same time. It's a procedural vote called deem it passed.
Why are you focusing on the Obamacare subsidy extensions now? Republicans say you could wait until the end of the year. You've got one of the biggest districts along the border, and the Border Patrol there is saying stop playing political games. They don't know when their next paycheck's coming. So I hear you focusing on Obamacare subsidies. I see the Border Patrol in your backyard saying stop playing political games. How do you square both of those, saying we're going to talk about health care, but maybe not paying some of these folks?
Well, I was standing with Border Patrol back in 2019 when they shut down, when the Republicans shut down the government itself. And I stood there with them, and I'm standing there with them again. The problem is I got about 113,000 people in my district. They're going to see their premiums more than double. Over 113. Border Patrol does have insurance, but there are some people that don't have anything. I also have over 55,000 people that are going to lose their Medicaid once this big, beautiful bill comes in. So there are ways that we can work this out. And look, I talked to Border Patrol. I talked to them when I was flying up here on Monday. Right. And I work with them very closely.
No, you do all the time, which is why I bring it up, right? Yes. Like we talk to you on this show all the time about the Border Patrol issues. To your point, Chuck Schumer, do you feel as if he needs this fight to prove something to the base?
Well, I think that's a question he needs to answer, but
what do you think?
But we saw what happened last time where he worked this out. So I think he needs to show something to the base. But at the same time, I don't want to speak for him, but I would say for myself, I got 113,000 people that are going to see their insurance premiums more than double what they're paying right now.
Give me a date, if you don't mind, or a number of days you think this all gets figured out, and when?
Well, this can be done quickly. We were here, as you know, we had votes set for Monday and Tuesday. Our Republicans that control the White House, they control the Senate, they control the House. They cancel votes. But they were here doing a press conference today, but instead of having a press conference, they could have sat down with us very quickly. I asked them to look at what I said.
Okay.
You can do the CR and deem the subsidies passed in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, so that gives everybody time to negotiate.
All right. We want to hear from the other side of the aisle. I do appreciate you coming in, Congressman Quay, our Democrat from the great state of Texas. All right, other side. Come on in, Rich McCormick, Republican from Georgia, with us now here on the Hill. What'd you make there of what the congressman had to say? Is that a solution?
Hey, my brother from Texas is a little mistaken on this. The CR is a compromise. It's what I voted against in December because I didn't like how much we're spending. 30% deficit spending. We spend $7 trillion. We take in $5 trillion. They want to expend it by another $1 trillion, even though we're going to be spending $3 trillion more in this year than we take in. That's irresponsible for our children and our children's children. There's no way we're going to be able to sustain this. I voted for the CR not willingly, but because I knew it was the best deal we could get. It was a compromise. By the way, this is the same bill that when we had 35 Republicans vote against it, 100% of the Democrats voted for it. Same spending levels.
Let's
go a step further on this because this is really important you understand. When you're going to talk about Medicaid funding, all that stuff like that, the big, beautiful bill that he just mentioned. I love Henry, but the big, beautiful bill, when we talk about defunding Medicaid, who is not getting Medicaid? You know what the requirements are? Either look for a job, get trained for a job, do part-time job. That's like as little as you can possibly do. By the way, that's good for you. Sitting at home and not doing anything and receiving something is not good for you. I'm an ER doc. That is actually very bad for your psychology.
I hear you, and I see the passion, Congressman. Let me ask you, though, and looking forward here, because one of the questions is, with Republicans in control, what do they want to do with the shutdown? How do they want to handle it? And I saw Russ Vought today, who's the director of OMB, Management and Budget, say roughly $18 billion in New York City infrastructure projects have been put on hold to ensure funding is not flowing based on unconstitutional DEI principles. And then he also said $8 billion worth of Green New Deal funding to all Democratic states is on hold as well, and the administration is talking about firings. You've got there in the state of Georgia 130 military and civilian federal employees in Georgia. As the administration talks up the possibility of firings, do you think they should go that far?
Well, first of all, realize nobody in the military is going to get fired.
Correct.
I've been through this before. I've been in the military when we had these shutdowns. It's not going to happen. Anybody who gets released is going to be panned over, I hope, a lot better than we did with Doge, because quite frankly, we fired some people and rehired them a couple days later. I don't want to do that either. I want to be very thoughtful in this approach, and I think they will be. As far as the IRA subsidies to Democratic states, they've been sapping the American people and the taxpayer on interest. Basically, we're going to be paying over $1 trillion on this year. I don't think the IRA was a good deal to begin with. I think the IRA had a ton of subsidies. And by the way, if your business is based off of government subsidies, it's probably a bad business model, quite frankly.
What's the off-ramp here and when?
We'll vote for the compromise, which is the CR. The CR is a built-in compromise. In my opinion, we should have asked for more, and then the compromise would have been the CR, but we started with the compromise, and that's why the Democrats think they have some sort of power here. You have two Democratic senators in Georgia. You're putting yourself in jeopardy, gentlemen. You're going to put yourself in jeopardy this next election. You better change your vote.
You heard from both sides here on the Hill. Rich McCormick, Republican, as he mentioned there, from Georgia. Congressman, thank you. Henry Cuellar on the other side with us as well. Talk to you again soon, Congressman. With me now, Chris Darwell, Senior Fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, host of The Hill Sunday. My brother.
Doctor.
Where do we start? Where do you want to start? How about this? Should Democrats shut down the government if demands not met? 27% say yes, 65% say no. At least how that's the question is framed with Democrats.
Right, and then if you flip the framing of the question, this is a great indication of how polling is. If you flip the framing of the question and say, do you think Democrats should shut down the government to improve health insurance, blah, 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 people say yes.
Right.
So the idea that this is ever cut and dried, the idea that this is the old Washington axioms about the party in control gets the blame or this or whatever is a bunch of hokum. How it plays out will determine how this goes.
I thought this from Russ Vought today was fascinating because that's the White House saying, okay, you want this? We control the dials. Mm-hmm. We control the levers. And the question is how much the party in power, in this case the Republican Party, wants to turn them, when and where.
It will be very hard for Democrats to persist in this shutdown because they caused it. And they caused it by saying something that they had previously said was hostage-taking and unacceptable, and that you can't introduce exogenous concerns into a debate over a CR. That's what they said when Ted Cruz shut down the government over Obamacare. So they're on very weak standing to keep the shutdown going. They will get the blame for it. However.
Okay.
The consequences that the White House says that it is excited to deliver, right? J.D. Vance, Russ Vought.
Firings.
Right. They're thrilled about, they say, about being able to fire more people and that the government, they like the government shutdown is what they want Democrats to believe. The White House gets the blame. The president gets the blame when the economy is bad. And it doesn't matter who caused the government shutdown. A year from now, in midterms, if the economy is bad and if this accelerates an economic downturn, the Republicans get the blame regardless of who caused the shutdown.
Pick it up later in the show.
Ooh.
Chris Darwell, thank you, sir.
Deep tease.
Appreciate it. Still to come tonight. Here on the Hill, Vice President Vance issuing this warning.
If this thing drags on for another few days or, God forbid, another few weeks, we are going to have to lay people off.
So this is what Chris and I were just hinting at, right? And there is a brand new warning out today, not for the federal government. Have you seen layoffs in your company? Turns out you're not alone. Plus, with the shutdown, the military goes without pay. But their services continue only on NewsNation. Brian Enton inside one of the most secure facilities. Our coverage continues back in 4 minutes. I'm Blake Berman. See you then.
Some people off if the shutdown continues. We don't like that. We don't necessarily want to do it, but we're going to do what we have to keep the American people's essential services continuing to run.
Vice President Vance earlier today predicting firings if the government doesn't reopen soon. The White House signaled last week that it could begin mass layoffs if Congress failed to avert a government shutdown. The director of Office and Management and Budget is Russ Vought, the one tasked with sort of managing all of this. He told Republicans that those layoffs could begin in a day or two. Now, the news of impending layoffs comes as we're starting to see more cracks in the labor market as a whole. Would you look at that number here? The payroll company ADP reporting today that private employers shed 32,000 jobs last month, more than expected. Now, that puts private sector jobs in the red for 3 of the last 4 months, according to ADP. With me now, Mick Mulvaney, NewsNation political contributor, former chief of staff in the Trump White House, former budget director over at OMB, Russ Vought's best friend. Did I miss it all or no? Did I get it? Is that it? You know Russ, they're going to start doing mass firings?
Yeah, mass layoffs. Look, I think they started today. They didn't get a lot of attention, but I think they started at the patent office.
Bloomberg Law. Patent office lays off staff as government shutdown begins 1% of the agency's workforce.
Exactly. 140 people.
But if you're one of those 140...
No, that's good, but that's not the argument. The argument is, oh my goodness gracious, the economy's going to come tumbling to a grinding halt because of all these government layoffs. It's just not going to happen. Look, you could lay off 10% of the entire non-military federal workforce. About 2 million people, so 200,000 people, which they'll never do, but you could. On a good month, this economy creates 200,000 jobs. So it really...
On a good month. We haven't been there anywhere close.
Well, 4 or 5 months ago. I mean, it's not that long ago that we were doing that. And you could do it again, and we will do it again at some point in the future. The point of the matter is the government is not a jobs program. That's not why we hire people. We don't hire people to work for the federal government so that they are not unemployed. We hire people to work for the federal government so they can provide the services necessary. And what the Trump administration said today is, look, we can do the job of the patent office without these extra 140 people.
You know Trump well. Very well.
Bit, sometimes.
You know Russ even better.
Yeah.
Do you think they go down this path?
I think they've discovered that it's leverage. I think that there are now, they sent out notices last week. We've talked about it, when that OMB notice saying, if we go into a shutdown, there's going to be a lot of layoffs. By the way, because it's easier legally to lay people off during a shutdown than it is ordinarily. We can have a long conversation, and I hope we do, about why a president can't lay off federal workers anyway if he's the chief executive, but that's not the debate we're having. But they sent out this memo for leverage so that Democrat senators say, you know what, I'd rather keep the government open than lose this program or that program.
What about doing this now? I just showed you the ADP numbers. Those are private companies in the red, 3 of the last 4 months. Is this the time to do that? Because Trump owns this economy.
It is. It's Trump's economy. There's no question about it. He's going to say if they have a bad jobs number, it's Biden's fault, et cetera. It's a good, but failure is an orphan, but success has 1,000 mothers, et cetera. But look, 140 people today at the at the patent office. That doesn't move the needle. There's not going to be a big enough impact in the overall market. The single best quarter economically that Barack Obama had in his 8 years in office, from a GDP perspective, an economic growth perspective, was the quarter with the longest government shutdown during his 8 years. There's no connection between a government shutdown and the overall performance of the American economy.
You don't think so?
No, I really don't. I really don't. In fact, I think you could make the argument that less government spending is actually better for private sector for private sector productivity, which is better for the overall government.
All right. You started the House Freedom Caucus, too. I bet you those folks make that argument.
A little bit of that.
Leave it there.
I still believe that stuff.
See you later in the show, man. Appreciate it. All right. Still to come, other side of the break, whether it's a Russian fighter jet, Chinese spy balloon, nuclear attack. I'm just naming a few for you. The folks inside that complex right there, always ready to defend the homeland. You don't just get to walk into this thing. But you know who did? Our Brian Entin. And Brian's on the other side of the break. Live look right now, Capitol Hill, 6:30 here in Washington tonight. Lawmakers on day one of the government shutdown getting basically nothing done. Healthcare, a central feature of the argument. Democrats wanting to keep the government closed until Republicans agree to more healthcare spending, specifically the extension of subsidies involving Obamacare. Republicans saying Democrats are trying to force taxpayers to pay for illegal immigrants' healthcare, and that this conversation could happen at some point between now and at any point at the end of the year. The Vice President, J.D. Vance, the House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, going back and forth.
We think the American people's government ought to benefit American citizens. The Democrats are willing to shut it down to benefit illegal aliens. The contrast couldn't be more clear.
At midnight, Donald Trump and Republicans shut the federal government down because they don't want to provide health care to working class Americans.
Essential jobs remaining open, including those overseeing Social Security and Medicare payments, unemployment benefits, weather and disaster response, law enforcement, all the major agencies that you know, air travel, of course, if you're going over to the airport, and the Postal Service as well. Now, members of the military also find themselves working as the fight on Capitol Hill goes on, with really no end in sight, right? Or Joe Khalil with the very latest tonight. And Joe, the conversation of troops and the military and pay was part of the conversation, although let's be honest, there was no movement today.
Almost none, Blake. No progress. And the military is almost top of mind when you think about the impacts of a shutdown. Now, when it comes to pay, they haven't been impacted yet. If this ends up being a prolonged shutdown toward the middle of the month and you hit October 15th, then military members active duty will not get paychecks. And I know several military families that live paycheck to paycheck. So that obviously is going to be a big deal. But there are other impacts, on base communities around the world where our active duty men and women live. You've got services, you've got help centers, you've got things like childcare, and some remain open, but others remain closed. So already there are some impacts here. I should just mention, last shutdown, Congress passed an extra bill to make sure that the military did get paid. So we could see that as a possibility, too. This is what the vice president said here.
Our troops are not getting paid starting today because of the Chuck Schumer wing of the Democratic Party.
So again, as long as we have something that comes forward between now and the 15th, they will get their paychecks, but we'll have to see. Meantime, I talked to Hakeem Jeffries today, the Democratic leader, about progress. And I asked him essentially whether there was any outreach between the leadership on both sides of the aisle to try to get out of the shutdown. This is what he told me. Can I just ask you if you've had any outreach at all today from the Republican leadership side, if that's happened at all yet?
We have not, and that's quite surprising, because we've consistently indicated that we're ready, willing, and able to sit down with anyone at any time or at any place here in the Capitol or back at the White House in order to try to work things out.
So, Blake, you'd expect at least both sides to be talking, and Leader Jeffries says that's not even happening yet.
Or Joe Khalil, live tonight up on the Hill. Joe, thanks. So as members of the military wonder what might come next, as you just heard Joe lay out, the command posts that keep us safe continue to operate. Whether it's Russian jets, Chinese spy balloons, or drug boats in the Caribbean. The Cheyenne Mountain Complex in Colorado is consistently on high alert, essentially playing quarterback in any given situation that might pose a threat to the homeland. You don't really get to walk into this thing, but you know what? There's not a lot of folks like our Brian Entin. Got an exclusive look inside this underground complex. My gosh, Brian, you get to do a lot of cool things, and they took you inside. What'd you see?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, Blake. It was pretty cool. Definitely a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But I've never seen security quite like this in this mountain behind me. I mean, there were 14 members of the military watching our every single move. Before our photographer could push record, every single time they had to check the shot. And they said the reason is because they are sure that Russia and China will be watching this story, trying to steal their secrets. So this is the Cheyenne Mountain Complex. This is one of the most secure, secret military facilities in the entire country. Basically, no one is allowed inside, but we're going into the secret NORAD control center. We walked almost a mile into the cave with our military security escorts, watching our every move, literally every step we took. We're deep in the mountain now. We've got to go through these two massive, just huge bomb blast doors. How thick are these things?
Well, they're about 3 feet thick, and you can see my wingspan approximating it for you here.
The secret complex has its own power plant, heating and cooling systems, and a series of underground lakes that provide water. There's enough food to last what the military tells us is a very long time. The bunker is used to protect against nuclear attacks, cyber terrorism, chemical, biological, and radiological attacks, and electromagnetic pulses. So how protected are we right now?
We're well protected right now. This place was built to withstand multiple megaton nuclear blast about 1.5 miles away from the mountain.
Standing right here, we're protected from a bomb 1,000 times stronger than Hiroshima. These massive springs would absorb the shocks from a nuclear blast. I was standing in that mountain thinking, gosh, is there something they know that we don't know? Like, they're prepared for the worst.
Well, the Cheyenne Mountain was built in 1966. It was operational. It's a great facility, built at the time for a nuclear threat. It certainly is still capable.
Four-star General Gregory Guillot oversees all of NORAD, North American Aerospace Defense Command, and U.S. Northern Command. To put it simply, he is the man in charge of protecting the United States.
It's, truly worth whatever they paid for it back in the early 60s, and we're using it today just as they did for the decades before.
Welcome to the most secure subway in the world.
It is truly a hidden world down here, with everything to support round-the-clock crews.
This is the NORAD Air Chief. I label track Whiskey Mike 253.
We're in the middle of the mountain right now. This is the NORAD command center that you see behind me. If there was some kind of war, a nuclear war, some kind of attack on the continent, this place would be bustling. This is called the battle deck. This is where leadership, military leaders from both Canada and the United States would be if things turned really, really bad.
But I don't worry. We've got the greatest military members working it, and we're ready.
It was kind of crazy, Blake, down there with all of the high-tech equipment. They had a subway. They've got a subway deep in the mountain so that all the people who work down there can get a sub. And it was funny, the lady ringing people up said, this is welcome to the safest subway in the world. But it was really something. I mean, and that chair I was sitting in, Blake, in that control room, that chair is where the commander would be sitting. If there was a nuclear war or an attack on our country and everything shut down, that is the chair where the person calling the shots would be sitting. So it was pretty insane.
Wow. You know, I've been fortunate enough, Brian, to be in the Situation Room, and when you're there, it's like really weird because it's serene and peaceful. And I was just watching your story, and it's like it feels kind of normal, but you realize you're in the middle of something that's not normal.
Yeah, no, totally. And it also gives you a lot of pride in our country.
Yeah.
I mean, when you see all the work they're doing behind the scene. I was watching your story about the shutdown. You just think about these people not getting paid right now, and they're literally protecting the entire continent 24 hours a day.
Huh. Fascinating stuff. Brian Enton there. It's not really like on the front lines, but on the front lines, right, Brian? Essentially.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, good way to put it.
Yeah, they're in the middle of it all. Brian, fascinating, great stuff. Thanks for the story tonight. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Blake.
All right, of course, still to come tonight here on The Hill. Who blinks first to help reopen the government? Will the Democrats budge? Might Republicans move? When are we going to hear from the president? When we return. Longer to avoid a government shutdown. That government ship has sailed. The goal now to try to figure out how to reopen the government. And on day one, it doesn't seem as if either side is budging.
I urge my Republican colleagues instead to join with us, work in good faith to keep the government open, keep costs down. This is a totally partisan bill.
The reason why the American people's government is shut down is because Chuck Schumer is listening to the far left radicals in his own party because he's terrified of a primary challenge.
So So I think there's really two questions here. One, what's the off-ramp, right? How does this end? At the end of the day at home, that's probably the thing you care about most. When are they going to get done with this stuff? And then politically, is this something that Chuck Schumer needs, and how does he get out of it at this point? Full panel here with me now. Mick Mulvaney back with us again, NewsNation contributor, former Trump White House chief of staff. Linda Tran, former senior advisor to the Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. Chris Stirewalt, host of The Hill Sunday, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. And she is the national political reporter for The Hill, Julia Manchester. Hello to you all.
Hello.
Happy Wednesday, day one of this shutdown. What's the off-ramp here?
The same off-ramp that we always have during a government shutdown, which is the side that is pushing the clean CR wins. You end up with
that's the fund the government.
You can go back and find a group of Democrats saying over the last 10 years you can't use this as leverage, and then find a group of Republicans saying the exact same thing. You can't use a CR as leverage. The clean CR side wins, which is simply to say you end up with a clean CR. I don't think it's winning or losing politically because nobody really cares when it comes to the next election, but you'll end up with a clean CR.
But how do you get there?
Eventually Chuck Schumer's his caucus will tell him that it's okay to cut a deal. He can't cut a deal until his group tells him that he can.
What's the off-ramp here?
Well, I think, first of all, they're in a good position. I feel like this is not the popular opinion on this panel.
They being?
Democrats,
okay.
Because they're in a position of championing health care for Americans. And, by the way, in Trump's America, in Trump's world, actually having the microphone at a moment when usually he's, flooding the zone and taking all the headlines. So, for now, I think that Democrats are in a strong position to keep making that argument.
I don't think you disagreed with that.
Well, no, the microphone part is right. He's giving them a chance to sort of fill the airwaves with their message. I still think it's a losing message. Democrats are going to talk about healthcare all the time. That's great. People are going to look, can't we have this conversation after the government is open?
Julia, Chris, there was the vice president over at the White House today, and you might remember there was the post from the president about Hakeem Jeffries in a sombrero. J.D. Vance was asked about it, said this.
Oh, I think it's funny. The president's joking, and we're having a good time. You can negotiate in good faith while also poking a little bit of fun at some of the absurdities of the Democrats' positions.
I don't think the Democrats think it's funny, and the reason why I play that is because that's sort of where we are on day one, Julia, with really no clear this is where it all goes.
Yeah, and to add on top of that, last night President Trump put on Truth Social pictures of the meeting with Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries earlier this week, in which Trump 2028 hats appeared on the desk. I mean, he's clearly trolling, and it shows, I think, where we are, because clearly Democrats don't necessarily find that funny. But I will say this, I think there is maybe some progress, the beginnings of some progress, I should say, and I'm saying that very cautiously, in the Senate. You have Senator Mike Rounds, for example, a Republican, who, even though he voted along with Republicans on this, he seems to be willing to talk to Democrats about extending these Obamacare subsidies, in particular, past next year. And then there's also some Democrats, I think, Jeanne Shaheen, for example, from New Hampshire, who seem to be taking part in these discussions. I think, with someone like Catherine Cortez Masto voting along with Republicans, I think that could give an off-ramp maybe to some moderate Democrats to vote along with them, or vote along with some deal. But right now, no end in sight at the moment.
Our health insurance premiums up in the United States 80% since Obamacare passage because of Obamacare, or would it have been worse without Obamacare, right? There are two different arguments. But the one thing that we know is that health costs in the United States are astronomical and getting higher.
Up and to the right.
Right. And so this is Democrats are shoving it in the face of Republicans. And Linda is right, very right, and wise as usual. But I will say this, they have a microphone, but what are they talking about? Sombreros. And was your AI slop meme racist or not racist?
Which was exactly the point.
Which was exactly the point of what Donald Trump did. And with the crude gesture of putting those hats that he's going to run for a third term on the table, Donald Trump is playing a game that Democrats don't even understand. Gavin Newsom has shown that he's willing to engage in that way, but Democrats look like a bunch of stiffs standing up there, well, we feel very upset about the things that the president said. And the president got them to not talk about their winning issue. The Republicans are sucking wind on health care, and he got them to talk about whether sombrero AI slop was racist.
I thought health care was no longer a problem after we passed the Affordable Care Act. Wasn't that what we were told?
Well, see, that's the debate for that end of the table is health insurance unaffordable in the United States because of Obamacare, or would it have been worse without Obamacare? And the parties have two different views on that.
Because it was going to solve all of our problems.
Linda?
Many, many millions more Americans have health care coverage. And what we know is that if those subsidies lapse, that 22 million Americans will see their costs go up even more.
So to Chris's point, if I summarize it correctly, Democrats are basically don't know how to fight this right now. Right? Is that fair? Is this the fight that Chuck Schumer needs to win? Is this the fight that Chuck Schumer wants? Is this the fight that he should take up? Because as we know, the last time that there was this sort of how to fund the government conversation, he got crushed. Got absolutely smoked from the base in your party.
Yeah, and I think actually it's an internal struggle for Democrats every single time a stopgap funding bill comes up, because Democrats want government to work. Democrats want there to be forward motion. And so it's hard to be the ones that say we're not going to fund the government at this moment. I will say that what's been clear this entire year is that progressives, especially the further left side of the party, really want to see some fight. They want to see the Democratic Party say and do something.
Like, is this the fight? Like, should this be it?
I think
because the first few months, sorry to interrupt you, the first few months where we were talking about Elon Musk, they found their guy, found their guy, and now it's like, is it this?
Well, this is much more salient, I think, to normal people's lives. They do want their health care costs to be under control. They want to see the price of groceries go down. They don't like the idea of billionaire tax cuts. And so this does put Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, and Democrats in a better messaging position.
Let me see if I can draw a parallel to 2019. One of the reasons we opened the government at the end of this shutdown 2019, even though we didn't get the money for all the border wall that we wanted, was that we convinced the base that we cared. They knew that we went to the mat, we closed the government for 35 days in an effort to try and get more border wall money. We didn't get it because we had opposition from Republicans in the House and the Senate, but all the voters knew we cared about the issue. Maybe that's when the Democrats can open the government here, once they convince their base they care.
So, Julia, Mick just mentioned 35 days. I just want to show this real quick. Longest government shutdown since 1976, 35 days. And I guess one of the questions here is, how long is Schumer willing to go?
Well, absolutely. And I think the problem with Schumer is that he is on tape as recently as last March saying how bad a government shutdown would be for Americans. And on top of that, I think Republicans have a leg up because Republicans need Democratic support to pass a CR or pass their CR. Democrats technically need Republican support as well, but Republicans, you know, they can already point to two Democrats and one left-leaning independent as, you know, coming on their side. So I think that makes it that much more difficult for Democrats to message on.
The only one who can save the Democrats now is Donald Trump. There's only one person in Washington, and it will be this, that if Donald Trump decides that he likes the shutdown or he thinks the shutdown is cool. We had a 35-day shutdown, and Mick had the front row seat for that. We had a 35-day shutdown because Donald Trump wanted to have a 35-day shutdown. That's exactly the shutdown we had. And if Donald Trump becomes convinced that it's good for him to have the shutdown, and Russ Vought or whomever convince him, like, actually, we get to cut all this stuff and do all of these things, and it's great. And if Trump comes to like the shutdown, then he will screw it up for Republicans, and he will make the Democrats look like the victims, and then maybe it changes the politics. But short of that, there's no way off this ledge for Democrats except to vote for a CR and get on with it.
All right. We'll see where it goes. Thank y'all. Appreciate it. Still to come tonight here on the Hill as Washington navigates all this. Think about the deadline that was last night. There was another deadline as well, and it is a new era today. Ooh, I got Mulvaney shaking his head. Do you know what I'm going to talk about on the other side?
Subsidies went away.
Well, don't give it all away. That's why they call it a tease, man. The other deadline on the other side of the break, I'll explain it. The day here, but a couple headlines to catch you up on thehill.com if you're just getting home. Pete Hegseth, the fallout continuing today. Hegseth's military meeting triggers fears, head scratching, and praise. That, of course, was the big talk to the generals yesterday. And then a big decision from the Supreme Court today saying that they will keep, or Lisa Cook is allowed to keep her job for now, The Fed governor, the court will take up that case in January. For those stories and more, all you have to do, head on over to thehill.com or scan that QR code on your screen. All right, time for my take now before we head out tonight. Get ready for a jolt to the system, because the government tax credit that was originally offered to the drivers of electric vehicles 16 years ago just hit a major red light. Legislation at the end of the Bush and the beginning of Obama administrations provided the first EV tax credits. The current benefits signed into law by President Biden awarded new EV purchasers with a $7,500 credit. But the battery life on that legislation officially expired last night, as it wasn't included in President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill. Now, here's a look at EV sales since 2012. You can see the huge jump. This is percentage. Basically, about 1 in 11 Americans right now have an EV out on the road. Record sales that we've seen in recent years as well. But like anything else, if the government gives you money to buy something, it only increases the chance that you will. So now we are about to see the true demand for electric vehicles, because it will be all of your money going forward and not the government's that will be needed in this space to go green. Coming up here on NewsNation, Elizabeth Vargas reports. Just on the other side, Vani Hari. Very cool. She's speaking to Vani. She's on the show a bunch here. Elizabeth will be talking to her. You might know her as the Food Babe. That's coming up here in just seconds on NewsNation. I thank you so much for watching us tonight here on the Hill. That building right there. There's a whole lot of this right now. Not a lot of solutions. We're here for it throughout the week.